Welcome back to another episode of Digging Deeper Ag Chats with Al. Today we're joined by Ben Young from Chiltern Park Angus, a well-respected seed stock producer and commercial operator from Western Victoria. Ben runs a large-scale family enterprise focused on Angus cattle and composite sheep. He brings a wealth of experience to the mic. We talk all things mixed enterprise, from managing dry conditions with confinement feeding to how crops like kale play a role in bridging the winter feed gaps. Ben also shares his insights on building resilient livestock systems through careful planning, water infrastructure and genetics. From grazing strategies to mental health and industry advocacy, this episode is packed with practical takeaways. So grab a cuppa, this is not one to miss. Welcome everyone listening. Thank you for tuning in. We have Ben Young from Chiltern Park Angus here. Thank you very much for coming in, Ben.
Thank you, Alistair.
Let's get started just by getting to know you a little bit, who you are, where you're from and what you actually do in the ag sector.
I'm from Western Victoria, between Hamilton and Port Fairy, and I run our family business which runs Angus cattle and composite sheep, and also a seed stock Angus business.
Have you been on the farm your whole life?
I studied horticulture at uni and worked briefly in horticulture, and lucky that I got out of it quickly and moved back to the farm and worked from probably when I was 24 onwards. So I'm now 45. So
Yep.
I've been in it a while now, yeah.
And family run business?
It's a family-run business. It really started with my grandfather, and he built it up from a relatively small property now into a fairly scalable business.
So who's involved in operation now?
So I farm in partnership with my father, Peter, and we're 50-50 partners, and we have 3 full-time staff and a trainee staff as well.
Now, I know a little bit about Chiltern Park because we've actually used some of your straws here on farm, so we'll talk about that a bit later, but I was actually surprised that you run 6,500 odd composite ewes.
Which has actually come down, so we've actually reduced our composite ewe flock, and I think we might chat about that a little bit later, but we were running a lot more composite ewes than that, and we're just switching the scale a little bit back towards the cattle, and it's a little bit to do with labour and also how I want my systems run. Well,
let's talk a little bit more about that right now. So you obviously got a successful stud that you run, and so why do you incorporate sheep in that business as well? Because I'm sure there's plenty to do just with the cattle side of the business.
Yeah, so there is certainly the seed stock business. We also run a commercial cattle business as well at the same time, which is predominantly our business is just commercial cattle. Seed stock cattle started in about 2013, I think it was, and we started breeding bulls originally for ourselves, our own use, and it just snowballed from there and just kept going and going, and it got quite large to the point where we're selling 300 bulls a year. We've cut it back now to about 250, and we're finding it quite logistically challenging. But why do we run sheep? I originally started expanding the operation with sheep and leased a lot of properties and ran a lot of sheep on those properties, and one of the properties I'm currently in the second phase of purchasing, the requirement was I only ran sheep on that property and not cattle, and it was for a good reason. The water system probably wasn't suited to cattle and at the time, but now we're starting to run cattle there now. So
So have you ever improved that property?
Yeah, so mainly water systems and wire, and also pasture. It's quite wet, loamy country, and without a fairly productive perennial pasture, pugging would be a huge issue. So
why do you continue to run sheep then if you can run cattle on those blocks now?
I think they're a great pasture tool. The reason why we're downsizing the sheep operation, we were going to take them down to 5,000 ewes, was just logistically in our calendar of events, it was very difficult to manage everything and very hard on staff as well. So we've actually moved away from breeding replacement ewes. So we've got a young flock, so we don't have to worry about replacing for 3 or 4 years really. But where we've pulled out on running new lambs, and we've just simplified it so all the composite ewes are getting joined to terminals, and we're even joining them earlier, which goes against my principles a little bit. In the past we were a spring lammer, and I've now moved back to a June-July lambing, and it's more so that it fits our calendar better with our seed stock and commercial cattle operation, and hopefully enable us to hit this heavier lamb market that seems to be gathering momentum at the moment.
Well, the grids have definitely moved in the last couple of years, haven't they?
And we were not constantly, but sometimes getting caught with a lot of store lambs. It was a big job if we were to keep them and feed them, whereas hopefully we can get as many lambs off on grass as possible.
Yep. So when are you joining those?
So we joined mid-January.
And how do they go joining up that early?
Well, last year was probably a fluke because we had 100 mils at basically Christmas time, so they got joined onto green grass, and it was a magic joining. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens this year when we're in a completely different season where it's dry and a bit like a moonscape in Western Victoria at the moment. So joining will be a challenge, I suspect. So,
do you use Regulant or anything like that?
No, I haven't used Regulant, and it's something I suppose I'd like to see more data on and see whether it would be useful in our operation if we're going to continue joining sheep in early months. And we are, I suppose you could describe our sheep as a Coopworth composite, so they are probably a little bit temperamental to cycle early. So that was something we were really concerned about. So we did a second joining, but luckily the first joining worked really well last year. So we'll do the same thing this year again as an insurance policy. Yeah. Just in case we have a disaster. But hopefully it'll work quite well. So the ewes were in really good nick. And I think too, for the listeners, I don't claim to be a super sheep operator. If you're going to be in sheep, you want to do it as best as you can. Our operation was really complicated and made it really hard to run the sheep operation really, really well. We leased a lot of country, so facilities weren't, super that you were working in the sheep with. So it was a challenge. But now we're sort of moving to more owned and not leased. But I think we will still run sheep. Whether they're composite ewes, merino ewes or something else, I don't know. But we're certainly, it's sort of really summing up our sheep business at the moment. I know there's been a lot of movement out of sheep, and I hope for people that are in sheep there's going to be some real rewards in the next couple of years. One of the big factors to move towards more cows was labour and ease of management. I like cows because they're so resilient. Yeah. They can use a really poor quality feed and survive. You can treat them like an elastic band. They can go in and out very, very well. Sheep do not respond too well to being light and joining. Yeah. And generally, spring calving cows like we have, you're joining on green grass. It's pretty easy. Yeah. But one of the biggest factors for me when I was looking at my system is with sheep, you've got a depreciating value. So as soon as she becomes a ewe, she's dropping value from there on. Whereas when we talk about a heifer's gaining value until she's 3, and then she maintains that value almost until she's no longer useful as a breeder, which is a really good thing in a business. So, yeah. Yeah,
very time critical with sheep.
Yeah, and in the mutton market, if it's good, is great. It can be very, very fickle. And I feel that the cow market is a little bit more stable.
Yeah, if you got weight on the cow, you can still make some money.
You definitely can.
So let's talk about the cattle, like the commercial side of your operation. How many breeders? Yeah. Are you all breeding, or you trade as well?
No, we're only breeding at the moment. We have been looking at trading, but we're sort of a closed herd at the moment, so we don't bring any outside animals in.
Was that
more from a biosecurity point of view? But certainly we've got multiple blocks, so it would be possible to do that. But this at the moment, that's how we've sort of gone with it. We haven't traded, and
Now, you just mentioned briefly before that you have been very dry over there. It's something that you're not probably that used to, I guess, in a way.
I think we're used to dry summers. It's certainly on the back of last year. I think a lot of people found it really tough, me included. It was a really tough autumn. We were probably lucky in a way. We had reasonable pasture growth to get us to lamb onto and let cows out onto good feed at a huge expense, don't get me wrong. It was big last year. The feed bills were enormous and certainly took a mental toll on a lot of people. And, myself, I put on about 6 or 7 kilos probably because I was eating and drinking too much. Yeah, right. Because, it's sort of, you don't even notice it, but you're constantly, involved in it. And, the best thing for me was to get away and have a rest in the mid-year with the kids and my wife Jane. So, yeah.
Yeah, stress creeps up very slowly sometimes on people, doesn't it?
It does. And I think there'd be people in Western Victoria at the moment which would be having enormous water problems because they rely on surface dams, basically, and there hasn't been runoff rainfall. And it would be extremely challenging. And now we're facing, very little ground cover at the moment. So there's going to be a period of supplementation until we get some decent rains. So, yeah.
So let's talk about You said you had a big feed bill. I'm assuming you're not feeding out on paddocks. You'll be doing something different than that?
Yeah, so we moved to a confinement feeding system with sheep quite a while ago.
Yeah.
And I thought, why can't we do it with the cattle? And we started doing it a bit hoggledy-poggledy probably for starters, and then we've moved to a full mixed ration in bins.
Yeah.
And they're in confinement pens that are about 1.2 tears and roughly 100 to 150 a pen.
Yeah.
And they basically get cereal, hay, almond hulls, barley and canola meal this year they'll be getting. So, yeah.
Yeah. Full-time staff just to run that, just about would it be?
It's actually quite quick. So it's funny, when you're feeding a lot of cattle, like we've got this year, there's about 1680 spring weaners. We're currently weaning at the moment. It's a lot quicker than feeding them all out in the paddock. Yeah, proximity, it's a dense energy-rich ration. We used to feed a lot of silage, and I'm not against silage, but I felt that it was a lot of work, and we were getting very poor conversion rates out of the silage, whereas we're getting fantastic conversion rates out of our ration, which is a starter ration at the moment. And we're trying to get them to grow a little bit less, so don't grow too fast, because they turn into little piglets by mid-year. But yeah, they're roughly doing about 1.4 to 1.6 kilo a day on the starter ration, which is plenty enough for a little weaner calf. Yeah, they get ad lib access to hay, and then we change that over to straw. Last year was a stinker of a year for Western Victoria. The steers never left the containment area, and they were finished in the containment area.
So are you taking that article all the way through?
We did last year. Not on all of them. We probably did on about 2/3 of the group. Yeah, and they were killed between 300 and 380 kilos, depending on which market we were going into. So.
Right. And now that you've done such a massive feeding operation, is this going to be part of your plan going forward, even in the better seasons? Or
It's when I started, I thought it's going to just be for the bad seasons, but now it's become the norm.
Yeah.
And it's really a way, particularly with the weaners, of feeding them a really good forage. And because they're little, they don't actually eat that much anyway. And the cows can either go and eat dry grass, or you can supplement with a relatively poorer forage than what you could get away with feeding the weaners. So it has been working really, really well in that way. Hopefully this year we'll have a lovely rain and we'll be letting calves out onto grass a lot earlier than last year with a bit of luck. We didn't have enough room last year, so we've expanded our site. We did feed heifers on the ground with a very similar ration. Yeah, we do have forage crops as well, so we're planning to probably do about 50% of the heifers on forage crops this autumn.
Now, did I read somewhere that you use a fair bit of kale?
We do, and kale in the system is for my winter feed gap, basically, and that's for the cows. So, we've been growing that now for, I think, 6 or 7 years now, and it's been a real winner for us. It's a pretty cheap crop to grow, and we start feeding that normally in about May. And
we don't see much kale grown in this area. Why kale?
Why did I choose kale? I tried a few different things, and what I liked about kale is its shelf life. So I could basically, I call it my haystack, and I can feed it out in winter. So it's pretty much the same as growing a normal forage brassica that a lot of people grow, other than you're generally not grazing it early. You're grazing it for the winter. In New Zealand, of course, they can graze it in the snow and all sorts of things, but here we don't have that. But it has a great shelf life, so we'll feed basically cows on it from May through to about 3 weeks before calving, and then we'll let them go onto grass. And hopefully by that stage we've got a wonderful feed wedge, and we'll minimise the pugging to one area. It's been working well. But this year's crops are, as you can imagine, dry, and it'll be fascinating to see what they turn out like. Last year's, funnily enough, wasn't too bad, but it was probably really because of the 100 mil we got in the early part of the year that really kicked them along, and they just held in there until we got to some autumn sprinklings.
So when are you planting the kale?
Used to plant it in October, now we plant early November. So most of our other brassicas are planted in October, but the kale we do in November. Just find that you lose less leaves in the hot summers, the big leaves, if the plant's not so big. So
do you get much bug pressure down there?
This year we have been bad, but I find the bugs go away on holidays after a while. Certainly we try not to get too much damage, and we will spray if we have to.
Now, you touched on this briefly, the bull sales. I've got written down here 100, but you said back down to 250 this year.
Back down to 250, yeah. So we do have an online auction where we do a display day. the day before the online auction. That was really put in place to give clients first pick, because it was always an issue when you've got multiple clients coming for a private purchase or with agents, who gets the first pick.
Yep.
And everyone wants the first pick, so that's why we've gone that path, and we'll probably continue that. We might even put one into the spring as well.
Yep. And that's run on farm?
That is, yeah. So the display's on farm, and then the auction's all online, so there's no physical auction as such, other than on Auctions Plus.
Yeah, right. And a fair bit of work goes into running something like that. Is that a side of it you enjoy, or you?
It's certainly a lot of work, dealing with a lot of people, and it's something that, you know, if we continue to want to grow it, we're going to have to put a lot more emphasis on that. Marketing's probably not my strong point, and it's something if we want to get larger in it and get a bigger foothold, because it's pretty competitive in the Angus breed at the moment. There's a lot of studs around, so we certainly would have to lift our game a bit, I reckon, Alistair. But I do love breeding cattle, and I love genetics, so I'm a figures man through and through. I like genomics. You know, it's something that we're passionate about doing. It's just growing that market of customers, really, so for our bulls. So
Well, I had a business mentor, I guess, and he says, make sure you do what you do well and pay other people to do the other things.
I think I need a marketer.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, like I mentioned before, we actually used Chiltern Park mow.
Yeah.
And there's no calves on the ground yet, but they're due middle of the year. The young girl, Emily Cook, who's a local, was very excited to hear that some Chiltern Park mow was coming here. So I'll let you know how they go when they're on the ground, but it was good. Day-to-day management for you as one of the main people in the business, what does your day look like on a weekly basis?
Oh, I'm still very hands-on on farm. I probably have stepped back. I try to step back a little bit to give myself some time to think and set some plans and things like that. It's something that I've needed to do, because it's sort of gone flat out ever since I was younger. And if there was a mistake that I made, it wasn't allowing enough time to do that background work, some analysis and research on what we're going to do going forward. So Fridays are generally my day where Friday afternoon I'll sit back and we'll draw up job sheets for the next week and run over some things that we need to, so financially wise or business wise, or planning what we're going to be doing.
There's quite a common theme actually in this industry, that the guys that are starting to get big, if they don't take a bit of time out to view their operation. You don't, and you've just stuck in it. It's like it's addictive being operational. It's sort of, it can be a real trap. And particularly in a year like last year, when I might have 3 or 4 B-double loads of feed coming in a week. If you're not allowing time to think what you're doing and assess what you're doing, it can be a real trap and paint you into a corner almost. And the mental pressure that puts people under, especially you would have possibly seen some of your mates
definitely
over the fence.
They were doing it tough. And I think, if you allow time to set some goals and aspirations, some targets, set up your calendar of events, have a plan from the immediate through till 5 to 10 years, I think it's great. When I first started, I had this thing in my head. I wanted to run 1,000 cows and 10,000 ewes, which I achieved at times, but there was no real plan there. And the tax man probably came and bit me a couple of times when I got out of leased properties. And to get there, I probably made some big sacrifices, and including not spending enough time with family and doing my hobbies probably. So I think you can utilise your time better if you plan better. I've
got a question that's off topic a little bit, but young person getting into farming, you seem like you're quite okay using lease property. She can be a tough gig leasing property. What's your sort of tips or advice for someone that is looking to lease?
I took it out of my presentation, Alistair, but it's funny. I had a thing where I said I should have bought more land and not leased.
Right.
And that's really based around, land prices have gone up enormously, but I never realised the challenges of scalability, particularly in a sheep operation. It's intensified. Cows are a little different because you only need a set of cattle yards. As long as you've got water and wire, you're okay. But sheep is a lot of work, and you're doubling up. You need more staff. It's hard. I think you really got to crunch the numbers. If it doesn't work on paper, don't do it.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for share farming and leasing in the next few years, and maybe leasing at the moment is more attractive. Just with the times we're in, like land prices have dropped probably 15 to 20% in Western Victoria. That's not the same everywhere, but which it probably means we should be running the opposite direction and buying. But leasing's great, but it's challenging, and there's not a lot of security. Like getting a lease over 5 years now is very, very unusual.
Yeah.
And if I was going to give advice to anyone, I'd want a long-term lease doing something.
So minimum 5?
Yeah, minimum 5, yeah. And I really like the idea of a step price lease, as the property's improved, the price goes up with. And, if you get a good owner that's really on board and wants to improve their place, you get a fantastic result. If the owner only wants the highest price per hectare, then you're probably not going to really have success, both parties. So you're going to really run it hard, and they're probably not going to be that happy, and nothing's really going to get improved that much. So I think leasing's very much about relationships, and if you can build good relationships with the owner of the property and both on the same page, and they can see, I've often showed them my profit loss statements, so just to say this is my budget for the year as well, what do you think? Because I don't think I can justify that sort of lease money. And often you'll get someone that'll just understand, so because they know how much they were making as well.
So we'll go back to this dry season in your part of the country. When do you start making decisions? It's going dry, you're running out of feed. When do you start making decisions? Because we've had a couple of conversations recently in here about the need to make decisions. Even if it's a bad decision, it's better than making no decision. Have you got any thoughts around that?
As long as you've done research around the decision, I think. For us, it's full noise at the moment. We're weaning as fast as we can.
Is that earlier than usual?
Yeah, we're probably starting this year 3 weeks earlier than usual. We probably should have started really pre-Christmas, because you could sort of see, I think you really knew about the first week of December where we were going to be sitting, unless we had some unusual rain event. But for us, we'll get all the cows preg tested, sell off all the empties. The cow market's good, so it's a positive. In regards to, we have got to reduce numbers this year because we've got too many breeders, so we'll have to come down. Not preempt. I hope I get a good pregnancy result and I get those options there. But with the sheep, and like all the calves will go into containment, so they're out of the paddock basically. I know where they're going, so at least I've got control over them. There still is some residual around, so the cows will stay out for a little bit longer. I don't like feeding cows if I can avoid it.
You have done though?
Yeah, I have done, yeah. And certainly last year we had to.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can get through to April, I would hope, and hopefully the rain's not far away for the cow side of things, but we may have to come in earlier and feed them a full mixed ration, which the cows we're locking up, very similar to what we've done with the sheep. We locked them up in groups last year of 200 to 300, and just fed them. Well, they were getting a full mix ration only because we have a mixer, but they were getting basically straw, almond hulls, and barley, and a little bit of canola. Not quite as much as the calves do.
Similar mix to the cattle.
Similar, but it's probably a lot cheaper mix, and certainly not quite as high quality. And they did get ad lib straw at one stage, but we ended up dropping that.
Just too much wastage, or?
Yeah, well, we could put it through the mix, so it wasn't too hard. So we were feeding it over the fence, basically, into small paddocks, basically 2 to 3 hectares. And look, there's some learnings that come out of it. We did get a tail in the mob, probably weren't feeding quite enough. A lot of competition, but it certainly got us out of a lot of trouble. Yeah, and if you can confine it feeding cows, cows are so resilient. You can feed them hay, you can feed them straw. If cows have got good condition, your options are more.
Yeah.
If the cows are skinny, then your options are less. And you really have to feed them a little bit better. So
takeaways, keep that condition on as long as possible.
As long as you can, and I suppose the big takeaway would be to wean early. Certainly, first calvers this year will be shredding condition in Western Victoria. So yeah.
Very good. Now move over to AI. You obviously run a fairly extensive AI through all cattle or just your heifers?
Yeah, so on the seeds, we only do AI now in the seed stock operation.
Oh, so it's all natural in the commercial.
It is, and that's really logistics.
Yep.
So, because we're a spring carver, so there's a lot of AI going on in the seed stock herd.
Yep.
So not all cows got AI'd actually in the seed stock herd. There's some cows that are probably out what I'd call B cows,
Yep.
and they got naturally mated, but they might be going anyway. So because they've been earmarked on their EBVs basically.
Yep.
So or age, and we do normally 1 round now. We used to do 2 rounds of AI, but now we've dropped back to 1 and best back up with bulls. So,
yep. And how specific is the bull over those cows, or is it once they miss that AI, they come out of the seed stock?
So we pick the bulls to match those AI
Yep.
groups. So now we're basically selecting AI groups before calving. We'll put them in their groups before calving based on certain EBVs and breeding as well, and we'll match them to the bulls afterwards. But we still multi-mate seed stock mobs. We just use genomics then to identify which is the
who's
sites.
come from what.
Yeah.
Right. And so with the AI, how many years now would you say you've been using AI?
Well, we were using AI before we even started breeding bulls. So really, look, it was actually, to be honest with you, I reckon my father would have been using AI from mid-early 90s when I was still at school.
Right.
So a long time. So
Yep. And have you seen a progression in technology and everything else in that time?
Certainly the fixed time programs have been, I think, probably for cow-calf mobs, and I'm not a huge proponent of doing cow-calf mobs for commercial AI because it's pretty hard on the animals, but certainly it's a lot easier doing fixed time AI than it was doing natural AI programs in the past. I don't think the results have lifted much at all, and hopefully, with research and stuff and technology, hopefully we can lift results in AI, because it's become a game changer for particularly commercial producers. Become a real option.
What's acceptable down your way?
I think in the 60s is acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone pull out a number 65, but I'd like to get 65 as an average if I could.
Yeah.
But the last 2 years, I think probably a little bit to do with spring, our conception rates have been back a little bit, so high 50s. Which has been a little bit disappointed. It's disappointing for us because it's a pretty expensive process using pretty top genetics, and you want them to stick. So
Do you buy in many genetics, or are you fairly happy with where you're at?
No, we buy a lot of outside in. Yeah, we don't buy any bulls in anymore. Yeah, so, but we'll use anything really if we can find the right numbers. And we've got a big focus at the moment on improving our claw structure, and we're hunting for bulls with good EBVs as well as that genomically. And it's actually a really good tool. You can really change a fault within a breed just using that as a tool. Yeah.
Well, that's a nice little segue, because you've recently spoke at the Red Meat Conference here in East Gippsland. You're one of the speakers, and your topic is the farmer's toolbox.
Yeah.
So can you just give us a little recap on what you've spoken about at the Red Meat Conference?
Yeah, I think I got asked to speak on the farmer's toolbox, and I think the concept of farmer's toolbox is we know we've got heaps of tools at our disposal. Not all of them are always accessible for various circumstances, but it's about being able to analyse your business and find some weaknesses or challenges in your business and opportunities as well, and implement some tools that are available to you. And I'm not a great multitasker, Alistair, so I can't really if you threw 10 balls up in the air, I'd be lucky to catch 2 of them, and that's probably about how many things I can implement at once on farm, as well as the operation that's currently running. So for me, I picked out things that we've tried to implement on farm, which are building a resilient system, and that came into confinement. Certainly in pasture-based is number one. If you haven't got a good pasture-based system, your business is going to struggle. But I just felt that, particularly with spring weaners, I needed a system I could lock in each year, and that's what I've gone to. I'm not saying it's the best system. I'd love to have irrigation water, but I can't get it where I am. But it's certainly a relatively secure system. The biggest variation in cost in the ration is probably the almond hulls that we use. So,
right. And so what key takeaways do you hope producers will leave that
I think to plan, analyse, set some systems in place, have some targets they want to strive for, set up really good water infrastructure. If there's the first thing you've got to do is got to have good water infrastructure on farm. Like our lease blocks, we've really put some emphasis on the water infrastructure there, and also on our own blocks. We've concreted around every trough with aprons. We don't want disasters to happen.
Yeah, right.
This year we've whacked in another board to try and fix up supply and then storage as well. So we're increasingly jumping towards our dams when we're under pressure, and we don't want dam water in our system. We've got good underground water, so we've now put in about 500,000 litres of extra storage, which can be pumped through our reticulated system from one end of the farm to the other. We've still got 3 other bores that can run into that system as well, and the dams are still there as a backup if it's an emergency. That's the way we've gone, but we're lucky that we've got underground water. Not everyone is, and if there was anything we'd want governments to do, it would be allow us to have deeper dams so we could have some more security and less evaporation. But, it's certainly a real challenge in Western Victoria for areas that can't get underground water. So
it's interesting. Now, you're a volunteer with SALRAC.
I was a volunteer, yes.
Oh, you're not currently on there.
I've stepped off SALRAC now as the Western Victoria chair, so they've got a new chair, right. Johnny Gardner, who's north of Hamilton at Cavendish. Yep.
Oh, I've been fed misinformation on that one.
Yeah. So it was, I think I stepped off in September last year. So
not too long ago.
Yeah.
So actually, back in September, when you still were on SALRAC, what were some of the things that you were actually advocating for or wanted to see change in our industry?
Well, the reason why I was on there, because I wanted to be involved with research, to improve research really, and outcomes, and adoption outcomes. Some of the big things for me were painful procedures on animals. I know there's been a massive amount of work done on pain mitigation, but I think until we address the root cause, which is the painful procedure, which hopefully we can just remove it altogether, I don't think we're addressing the problem. And one of the big things I was pushing for, and I never quite got there, was a vaccine for castration on animals. I'm anti-mules. I make no apologies for that. I don't think we can go forward with mulesing as an industry, and I think there are options there, whilst it will take you time to get towards non-mules if you're a merino wool producer. But certainly I think that you can get away from mulesing, but castration's an issue that's still going to come up, and I think a vaccine such as they use in the pig industry would be a game changer, and that's for cattle and sheep, if we could.
Yeah. So my brother-in-law works in a piggery, and it's 2 injections about 14 days apart, he said, and they disappear.
Yep.
Why has it not transferred to sheep and cattle?
That I do not know. I think we're quite traditionalists in a way in what we do things, and I think we need to sort of probably look outside the box for something like that to really get it to happen. In the field of setting up research priorities, there's a lot of players in the market, and it's not necessarily that they want to do the project that we want them to do, or one specific area wants them to do. We've got to get everyone on side for a project to go ahead, and there's only a certain amount of levy-based funds as well. There's government match funds, but I think we've got to really advocate, and that's a role of SALRAC as well, to really push for some of these things. Look, we've done some great programs within SALRAC since I've been involved in, whether it be lamb survival projects, cattle projects, and hopefully we get a great pink eye vaccine off the ground in the next 5-10 years. That'd be great, because pink eye is becoming a huge issue in cattle. I think advocation and getting producers at the forefront of research, they can really assist researchers, and a two-way street, and they can really assist in adoption. So I think having them there, it's great, but certainly we want some outcome. Yeah.
Now, you may not want to answer this question, and obviously work for a research organisation, but I'm just down the bottom of the food chain.
Yeah.
How political is it up there?
Well, SALRAC's not meant to be political, so
No.
they are very independent. So that's one thing I'd say about the organisation. It's very independent. It's not political.
Yeah.
But as you go up the chain, yes, it does become political, and that is challenging. And the more and more organisations you have involved in something, the more complex it's going to be, and it's harder it's going to be for getting an outcome or a result on a project. So it's whether there's less players in the market deciding on things, whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But Salrac was developed purely out of people, out of the Senate inquiry. I think it was back in 2015, don't hold me to that, about the good usage of producers' levies.
Salrac or the Western Australia one, they act as
Walrac,
the conduit from the research back down to levy payers.
Both ways.
Yep.
So really, as a producer member on Salrac for your region, you're feeding up priorities that you want to addressed, and they all do get combined. There's always compromises in those things. And maybe that's why I didn't advocate well enough to get the vaccine off the ground, Alistair. But I failed on that one. On my last thing, I was going to be my last hurrah, I think, but I didn't get it across the line. But hopefully someone picks it up and it goes forward in the next couple of calls. So,
I was talking to an English vet recently, and a lot of practices over there, they don't
castrate at all.
Yes, and they said for 5 months of the year it's fine, but that when the ram starts searching and their fences are often stone-built hedges over there, they say everyone's got everyone's sheep in their paddock.
And there has been some work done over here about that and the effect on egg quality and things like that, whether we could get away with not doing it at all.
They want a smaller article from what I understand too, compared to where we're going.
I think you'd have to get a lot of people on site, but anything's possible. Never say you can't. So
well, there's less tails getting docked in the district.
There certainly is.
And so if you could take out another procedure, it's just an economics thing too that is going to...
Or breed for short tail length as well. That'd be another option.
We'll come to the time for our signature question. So Ben, before we wrap up, question is, what have you learnt recently that has genuinely surprised you?
Give me time.
You can take as much as you want.
Probably the biggest thing I've noticed was how quickly sentiment changes in ag. Only 2 years ago in Western Victoria, things were rolling really, really well. And then we get hit with higher interest rates, a really poor season, and plummeting stock prices. And the confidence just drained out of the area. And the outlook's actually quite good. But to gain that confidence again, how long will it actually take? Will it take 2 years? It'll be fascinating to see, because other areas are going pretty well. Like Gippsland here is looking fantastic at the moment, and the meat prices are good. So there should be some confidence. But I think just that one burning event really, multiple events really in 1 year, but it really sours the taste of a producer, and it's hard to get out of that psyche of it's bad. So and hopefully rain changes it. The north seems to respond really quickly, but maybe down here are a little bit different.
No, it's been a really interesting half an hour with you, Ben, and it's obvious that you don't waste your words. You're very thoughtful in what you say, so appreciate you coming in, and I know the listeners are going to take a lot away from this conversation, so thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Alistair.
Appreciate it. A big thank you for tuning in today, and remember, if you have a question about today's episode or a topic you'd like us to cover, reach out to one of our many platforms and join the conversation. We're here because of your passion and commitment to agriculture. Together, we can build a stronger farming future.
This podcast is made possible by the Future Drought Fund Regional Drought Resilience Planning Program, co-funded by the Victorian and Australian governments.